Hi everybody, welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for November 3rd through November 9th, 2024, including the US presidential elections, which are going to be actually happening tomorrow on November 5th. I'm going to go over step by step a few things that I've noticed, and I'm going to let you make your own decisions, of course. There are a couple of things that we have to go over that are happening that are impacting all of us. Number one, Mars has moved into Leo. Yay, Mars moves into Leo. Now, that's actually a really beautiful thing. It happens, let me see, it happens early on in the week, because it happens, I think, November 4th. And that's good because it means that we get our vitality back. Aries, all Aries, take a sigh of relief because you're going to feel your energy come back. Leos, you're going to feel your energy come back, right? You're going to feel vitality over the next month. You're going to feel it hitting all of your natal suns. And by the time the sun, Leo, for just an FYI, in about 2 weeks when the sun transits into Sagittarius and Sagittarius season begins, you're going to really be feeling your vitality, especially Leo 2s, because I think that's where Mars will be at that point. It'll be conjuncting your natal suns, and the current sun will go into Sagittarius, which will really be helpful energy to you. So it's like, oh my God, sigh of relief, you guys. Vitality has returned, right? That's what we're doing right now. Okay. Lilith. Mars square Leo. Let me just get back into my charts because, oh geez, what's going on here? Yeah, so I want to do Lilith. So Lilith is now at the very end of Libra. Lilith is square to Mars and Pluto right now. So what could be driving us are things we feel shameful toward, or what becomes obvious to us are the ways we've been held back because we didn't feel good enough, right? Because we didn't feel powerful or strong enough, or because we were devouring something in order to combat it because we didn't feel like we could be on the up and up and face it head on. That's really interesting energy. And the reason why is I wanted to be sure because Lilith during the elections, the US elections, is going to be conjunct Kamala Harris's natal sun. And Kamala Harris's natal sun is going to be square to Pluto and square to Mars. Now, to me, when I zoom out, that's very powerful. But it's a little too powerful to the point where it will be polarizing. And polarizing is not good for the poles because we already have a split nation. In other words, Kamala Harris's natal chart represents, along with today's natal chart in comparison, represents the polarization, what polarizes us most. And I know that that is technically always been put onto Donald Trump, but if you look at his chart, he doesn't have extraordinarily polarizing things aspecting his natal chart now compared to the current chart. Right now, his natal sun is conjuncting Jupiter, which is actually very fortunate when you have Jupiter transiting your natal sun. It's in opposition to Venus, which actually makes things a little bit more indulgent and sympathetic toward him. And it kind of doses down the Jupiter. It's like more people might be interested in indulging in him now than they normally would. And then his natal sun and Jupiter is also sextile to Chiron, which means people will see him a lot more in trying to heal wounds than being that polarizing figure that he originally was. Now, you could say Kamala Harris they're both very polarizing energies, but her natal sun is square to Mars, the divine masculine, which is the group that she normally polarizes the most, which is males, especially young males. But Donald Trump is usually, polarizes women, right? Because, and yeah, his natal sun is now in opposition to Venus. Now, United States, Pluto is actually at the end, the last degrees of Capricorn, which is happening right now. This is happening right now, which is why it's such a huge impact on the States when Pluto went back into Capricorn earlier this year. There was such a tremendous impact on everything that was sort of comeuppance in the United States of America. And Kamala Harris and her natal sun actually represents almost like a focal point of all the kind of shifts and changes and restructuring that is happening right now. I'm not saying that it's a good thing, though, because when you deal with Pluto, it has to do with a lot of the things that need to change. And she could very well represent what needs to change. Donald Trump's chart is more ambiguous, and it's actually softer. And when it comes to polls, the actual polls, the actual voters, he's having a lot, like if you look at his chart, it's actually a lot, I wouldn't say weaker, it's softer, especially with his natal sun being sextile to Chiron right now. There's almost this kind of heroic, I'm gonna change things for the better kind of energy about him, as opposed to her, where it's much more do as I say, do it my way, get things done. And that could be very polarizing for voters right now, that energy. And this is already a very polarizing vote. So I don't know that that helps her in the polls when it comes to having that kind of gravity. Because when you deal with Pluto, it could be like, get my way, but get my way at what costs? And raise some suspicions and have people butt heads with her more than they normally would. So, I mean, I'm not going to make the prediction. I think voters, all I will say is voters seem to be softening toward Donald Trump, at least in his chart now, as opposed to her, where she is still very diametrically polarizing. You know, so it's almost like there could be that threatening energy about her. Like if you don't vote for her, things will never be the same. Things will fall apart. And that is actually not the truth, but I'm just talking about the effect that both of them will have on voters, you know, like not who can change things, but who will change things for the better versus who will wreck things. And when you look at Donald Trump's chart, it's softer, and softer could actually work for voter confidence now, as opposed to that hard, heavy hand of this must happen. And so, and I'm not even talking about their slogans. I don't know. I don't know what they've been saying to people, to be honest with you. But in terms of the chart, the impact, the dynamic of their character and how they project to people, as opposed to what their slogans have been or their media has been or whatever it is, he's actually, it's almost like in some ways his chart positions him more approachable than her, which is very difficult because he is a very polarizing character. But it seems like her formidability right now, I don't know if it's going to work for her or not, but it's more polarizing is what I'm saying. So how does this impact all of us that aren't even in the States? Well, let's get back to Mars goes into Leo, but it's square to Lilith. That's another thing. I'm sorry. Kamala Harris's natal sun during the election is conjunct to Lilith. So that's a really, once again, also darkening energy. It's an energy that is powerful, but it's also something that could make you not trust what she's capable of, you know, or the fact that her capacity seems more extreme. That could also influence people one way or the other as well. There's a grand trine happening all week long. And I know that sounds like maybe I'm for one or the other. No, it's not. It's I'm looking at the natal charts, and the way that they come across could really impact how people decide to vote for them or not. You know, for Kamala, it could very well be that people think, oh, she's going to get things done because she's polarizing and she has that power and gravity about her now. It could be that they think, well, she'll get things done. Like she'll do it, but it looks to me more like she'll destroy things. Like people will see her as somebody who they can't trust, who will destroy things, as opposed to him. And I'm not saying that that's correct, but if you look at the affect that it could have, in terms of how their natal charts are being struck. And if you look at King George III, who was the monarch of the UK during the American Revolution, his Pluto, his natal Pluto, was square to the current Pluto, to the Pluto of the United States. And now we have Kamala Harris, not her Pluto, but her natal sun is square to the Pluto of the United States. So that could be people just having an extreme reaction to her, right? And to her capabilities and whether or not they'll trust her. And whenever your natal sun is in, say, opposition to Pluto or square to Pluto, people have a harder time trusting you because they know you're there to take over and they're intimidated by you. So she could bully people into votes, right? But they could also feel bullied by her into votes. And I don't know how that's going to swing one way or the other. And I think it'll be really interesting to see the outcome. That's all I'm saying. So we have a grand trine in the sky right now, all this week. It's Mars, Mercury, and the North Node. And that's really powerful, especially with Mars heading into Leo. Thinking toward the future, taking conscious action toward the future. Decisions, action with intent. That's what it's about right now. It's future focused. This is not necessarily doing things differently. It's everybody knowing that they've got to do something and feeling the comfortable actually making those decisions now is really powerful stuff for all of us, especially if you are a fire sign in the beginning, like say Sagittarius 1, Leo 1, and Aries 1. Very, very energy of, I'm ready to make decisions now. I get it. I know what I have to do, and I'm ready to take action on what I figured out or what I have to say. Really interesting. Saturn is trine the sun. So currently the sun is in Scorpio. So Saturn is in Pisces. And the trine between them is just taking things seriously and getting shit done. Comfortable with authority. So if you are like a Scorpio too, there's an energy of laws and legalities and rules kind of going in your favor right now, or favoring the individual right now. And that's really nice energy for you. And then I want to see if I wrote anything else down. No, I did not. That's all my food for thought. I don't like to predict one way or the other because I don't feel myself extraordinaire. I don't feel myself as a great historical astrologer. If I were to make any predictions, it would be that Trump is more palpable now. It's not predictions. It's not a prediction. It's not a forecast either. It's an analysis. Donald Trump is more palpable now than he's ever been. And Kamala Harris is more powerful now than she's ever been. And it's just whether or not we trust her power or we trust that Donald Trump could get things done now that he's softened a little, right? Are we going to go for the powerhouse? Do we trust it? Is that what we want? Do we feel pushed? Do we feel, if at any time we feel bullied toward her, like we have to choose her or else, that will work against her, right? And what could work against him is, does he still have the chutzpah? Can he still make things happen? But more people are trusting him now than they ever were. And more people are seeing her as a force to be reckoned with than they ever have. And it's, which way do we want our country to go? And I gotta say, in terms of relationship to Chiron, Donald Trump's natal sun with Jupiter conjunct it, with that sextile to Chiron, it's almost like he's going to come across as more reliable and helpful at this time. So in terms of forecasting, if I go in terms of sympathy, I would have to say Donald Trump. But if I have to go in terms of power and power plays, I would have to go with Kamala Harris. And I think it would be interesting to see what our country is going to choose, at least from the United States perspective. So you let me know, comment all you want. It's not a political discussion. Just quote the astrology to me. I would love it. And I hope everybody else understands that what's going on in the sky right now is we're taking back our vitality, and we're taking back our ability to take action and move forward. We're not as scared of the future as we used to be. And I think this is really going to help us start to feel like we have the power to change things and change our lives. I'm not even talking about social. I'm talking about our lives, to change our lives. There's progress where we haven't seen it. Even in dark times, we're not scared of it anymore. So I like the vitality that is returning now. What do you think? Love you guys, and talk to you next week.